Translation. A person who in this life bears false witness or lies while transacting business or giving charity is severely punished after death by the agents of Yamaraj. Such a sinful man is taken to the top of a mountain 800 miles high and thrown headfirst into the hell known as Avichimat. This hell has no shelter and is made of strong stone resembling the waves of water. There is no water there, however, and thus it is called Avichimat, waterless. Although the sinful man is repeatedly thrown from the mountain and his body broken to pieces, he still does not die, but continuously suffers chastisement. Next verse. Any Brahmana or Brahmana's wife who drinks liquor is taken by the agents of Yamaraj to the hell known as Ayapana. This hell also awaits any Kshatriya, Vaishya or person under a vow who in illusion drinks Soma Rasa. In Ayapana, the agents of Yamaraj stand on their chests and pour hot melted iron into their mouths. Purport. One should not be a Brahmana in name only and engage in all kinds of sinful activities, especially drinking liquor. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas must behave according to the principles of their order. If they fall to the level of Sudras who are accustomed to drink liquor, they will be punished as described herein. Om Agyantimanda Shakandana Salakya Chaksumitam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vacharam Pandom Angati Grim Yat Kripa Taraham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Namo Om Vishnu Vadayana Krishna Kristaya Pujare Sri Madhavakti Swami Namaste Saraswati Deva Gaura Prachayani Vishesha Shunyavadi Paskachadi Satayami Vanja Kalpatarubhyascha Kripam Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Devyo Vaishnavyo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasti Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So, here we are still in the description of the hellish planets and the different hellish planets and the different hells and different kinds of tortures that sinful living entities are being exposed to. And of course, the purpose is very, very clear here. I mean, they meant to, I think I spoke as the other day, to make us actually very serious. We hear here that it's no light thing. You might take, that sinful activities it's not so bad. It's, if I tell a little lie here and there, if I drink a little liquor here and there, as we have in these verses here, it's not so bad. We have to be, we cannot be fanatical, we cannot be, and we have to understand, like that, but actually this is not what we're hearing here. Actually, there's very, very severe reactions for these particular sins that are committed here, which, actually, if you take Prabhupada's mood when Prabhupada came, that was, we found Prabhupada was actually uncompromising with sinful activities. It was something that was, for some, very attractive, and some it was very, very, they heard something like that, and statements that there are no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating. Many just heard this and they turn around again and find somewhere else, because where is the freedom? You cannot have it. And where's the love and where's the freedom if there's these restrictions? But as we know, that was the beauty of Prabhupada and the beauty of anyone who is any acharya and anyone who's following in their footsteps is that they make no compromise with principles as such. Whereas, it's also something that we might. Prabhupada was strict with sinful principles, and I think I was to talk about that. He was asked about that the other day. That Prabhupada will sometimes tolerate, devotees having some weakness. I cannot follow the principles and like that. I know I'm fallen and so on. And Prabhupada is just encouraged, but just go on and somehow or another. You'll get purified at one point. You'll get over it. But if someone was creating a philosophy out of this, then he would get, ferocious, like fire, like a lion, which happens also, and it's actually something that we easily tend to do. We might not think we're creating a philosophy, but actually we are philosophizing, we're changing the philosophy when we, to justify our own weaknesses, bend the philosophy to say, actually, it's not so bad what I'm doing. For example, here's the instance of liquor. So I've heard also some devotees who kind of, at one point, due to some weakness and like that, is not able to, even drinks liquors and so on. And you'll hear, well, actually it's not so bad. What's the harm anyway? That's actually Benjamin philosophy. It's one thing to say I couldn't help it and I'm weak and like that, and actually, but to say that actually it's not so bad, it's actually I'm going so far to say that it's not only with here, but Prabhupada gave many principles even down to the point of course not drink tea. Prabhupada had a real issue with tea. But some devotees think actually, no, it's not so bad. I even had some devotees offer me tea, and I drank it because I couldn't imagine that devotees would give me tea. And I think isn't this tea? Yeah, this is tea. And then I was objecting like that, but it's not so bad. Little tea. This is bending the philosophy. This is not our line. I know one might fight other Vaishnavas who are not, who may not have such an issue with tea. But we followers of Prabhupada, and Prabhupada really had a problem with it. It is intoxicating, mildly intoxicating, but not intoxicating nevertheless. Maybe also because it is a symbol of the decadence that was, flooding India, and therefore Prabhupada had such a, I don't know, but this it's no light thing with the principles. Following, not performing sinful activities, following moral principles such as being honest and so on, in itself is not pure devotional service. It's sub-religious principles, upa-dharma. It's so just because one is following these principles and one is not committing sinful activities doesn't mean that one is a pure devotee. That doesn't make just honest, decent, upright, standing citizens are meant to follow these principles, and they can still be completely materialistic and so on. It doesn't make them pure devotees. But still, it's although this is not pure devotional service, we have to, it's kind of the basis. There cannot be any devotional service in a situation where these principles are being broken in any way. But it doesn't make us pure devotees, but it's just the foundation for actually practicing pure devotional service. Then again, we also know that in one sense, a devotee can do anything for Krishna's satisfaction. A transcendentalist can do anything, even lie, even steal for Krishna is possible. We have many examples of devotees doing that. Maharaj Yudhishthira was asked to lie by Krishna himself, stealing. There is a famous example of, what is the name of this acharya? Tirumangal. One of the 12 others who organized a whole gang of thieves, and they were plundering the whole area around Ranganath. He actually plundered. It was an area that was infested with thieves at that time, and he actually banded together with thieves because also people were so miserly that they would not spend anything on religious activities and on the temple and devotional service. People were just miserly. So he employed, he combined the presence of these thieves and these misers, and then he engaged all the thieves in plundering all the misers and taking all the wealth, and then actually engaged in Ranganath's service. And it's a far out pastime in connection with that. But of course, there's some certain interesting things about it. One thing was that, although at the same time when he was actually heading up, he was a leader of the thieves for a long period, and a very good one, a very good leader, because thieves generally have no intelligence. They don't really have much intelligence. It's Prabhupada writes, gross materialistic thieves. You see, how have no purpose in life, have no aim in life. You cannot be, if you're a thief, you cannot really have an aim in life, because thieves are unintelligent. Might be in modern days, might be someone with a little smart, but basically, thieves are unintelligent because they don't see the broader perspective of life. But here you actually had someone who was a pure devotee and a thief, so he was extremely intelligent. So the plans he was making for the thief were the most, it was such brilliant robbery. So, but one point actually important to have in mind is when at the same time when there was robbery and stealing going on under his leadership, he was out begging every day for himself. He wouldn't take anything for himself. He was begging around. And in the end, we also know that he got rid of the thieves in a very... He killed the thieves. That's it. Anyway, but the point is that, he could do that, but that doesn't mean that anyone can do that. It's something Prabhupada talked about, the principle that one has to be very advanced in order to be able to catch the big fish without getting wet. And it's something that is not meant for common ordinary devotees. For ordinary devotees, we are meant to simply by default follow the basic moral principles of honesty and uprightness and life. Of course, no sinful activities. It's for both because this is how this is the best strategy of preaching in this world anyway. We had some experiences with that in the early years of the Krishna consciousness movement, and devotees, they were doing everything, and maybe I shouldn't say they were doing everything, I should say we were doing everything, because I was also part of it. I'm not so far off things, because I'm really stiff by nature. Not really. But we were doing so many things. We were, especially we had a lila with staying in youth hostels. You remember that? Checking in for one person and smuggling 5 other devotees in and doing stuff like that. This is silly and stupid, and it really doesn't spread. We had the idea we were saving money and like that. But actually, the way the mentality created, when you look back at it, the mentality it created really a crooked mentality in relationship to a certain persons, that those who were owners of youth hostels, and we couldn't look people straight in the eyes. We were always somewhat paranoid, which is how can you preach and spread Krishna consciousness actually when you are paranoid and when you are have bad conscience and so on. It's not possible. So it was, we were thinking it was we were practicing yukta vairagya, and but we were not. We were practicing vairagya actually. We were actually quite renounced, but there was no yukta. It was not practical. It was completely impractical, without touch with reality. Although it was very renounced. We didn't do it for ourselves, but it was just not intelligent. Robert, he gave very clear instructions that devotees should be known as, what was it precisely? Devotees should be known as honest. We should be known as honest people. Well, how does he say precisely what is?
Gentleman.
Gentleman is also the word that comes to mind.
Yeah, Prabhupada said we should be known as gentlemen. And but also he says, in particular in relationship to book distribution, we should be known as honest people. You know, so how do you become known as an honest person? Well, the simplest way is to be an honest person. That's generally, of course, one can pretend, one can be a diplomat like that. That's the philosophy of actually the Machiavellian philosophy. Machiavelli is the most influential political philosopher in Europe, Italian. Lived in, was around the 1400s, something like that, 1500s. And we actually have a little connection with him because our temple, Villa Vrindavan in Italy, was actually Machiavelli's old place. It was given to him. Maybe he was he not staying there, or but he stayed in the village. Okay. And so, but he wrote a very influential book called The Prince, where he gives advice to rulers, kings, how they should behave. And there's one principle is that it's very important that a ruler is being perceived as honest, religious, moral. It's maybe not necessary. It might even be harmful that if he actually is honest, religious, and moral. He probably should not be that, but he has to be perceived as such. That's Machiavellian philosophy. Machiavelli's philosophy is actually power. Power at any cost. The ends justifies the means. The end to get power at any cost justifies any means, basically. This is really his philosophy. It's a complete demoniac political philosophy. Prabhupada was very, very, it's very heavy word to say about Machiavelli philosophy. He's discussing Machiavelli at one point. Not at all Vedic philosophy, but that's European political philosophy. Power at any cost, and a ruler is someone who can, speak anything, but then, but he has to, as long as he's being perceived as an honest and religious and moral person. But then again, we know it doesn't really work. Modern politicians, you look at them, you can see that they're not honest. They're speaking anything, they say anything that they know people like to hear, and afterwards they do completely the very opposite. And they very often just work for some particular interest group and for their own aggrandizement and their own, for their own just hoarding wealth for themselves. But you can see with them is, even though they want to act as if they are honest and religious and so on, everyone can see they're not. But then again, we have no one else to choose between, so everyone kind of just resigns to the politicians. But as devotees, we can take as an example, we cannot just pretend that we are honest and moral people as Prabhupada wants us to be perceived as, which means that the only way to be actually perceived as honest people is to be an honest person. There's no shortcut, and so that's one point that devotees, for the sake of preaching, we have to be known as exceptionally honest people, and that will be extremely attractive in this modern world here, where there is no real honesty. There's very few people who have really high principles, integrity, and so on. I mean, there's some who have to some degree like that, but it's rare. People who say so many things, promise so many things, and but will not fulfill their promises. That's lying, as it says here. That's being a liar. If we are known as honest, people like that, it will be actually be extremely attractive. It will be a powerful preaching in and of itself. So that for the sake of preaching, that's one point, we have to be known as honest people. But even more so for our own sake, for our own development of Krishna consciousness. Actually, if we develop some group mentality, it will not be possible for us to really develop healthy and properly as devotees. It's mainly for our own sake. We are not on that level where we can, be honest to some and not honest to others. It's something that we, sometimes, I can look back. It was happened. We were not completely honest with people on the street. One can be clever on the street. That's not the point. One should be clever and intelligent and present, for example, Prabhupada's books in an intelligent way people can relate to. And if you tell people this is a fantastic book, you can solve all the problems in the world, including the oil problem. That's not wrong. Prabhupada was asked about that. And it's true. It's true. But one can present things in a clever way, but in an honest way, and also in a way that people, when they go from you, actually have a good feeling, and when they open a book, they also get a good feeling when they open the book. Actually, they should have a good feeling. But sometimes we didn't do that precisely. We had one time, one devote, the best book distributors. He was one time selling Bhagavad Gita as he was speaking so fast that he said, "You've heard about Icelandic saga or saga?